Hello, I'm Ashley Adamson, and I'm lying down right now. and today we're going to talk about Femme voice, how to improve, how to work and make it better, and also just talk about my own personal journey, which I'm still on. I think I'm almost 6 years now on my Femme voice trip or on my transition. And yeah, I thought I'd just kind of give my own take on things. Part of this vocal exercise that I'm doing is actually lying down because it's going to relax the muscles in my neck and allow me to practice controlling the airflow of my voice and releasing tension, because that's actually the next step in my own progression of my Femme voice. I have a lot of tension and I use a lot of pressure when I speak. So if I were to apply more pressure and speak how I usually go, it might sound more like this. Hi, I'm Ashley Adamson. I'm going to talk like this in this kind of way and like da 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 da. And I'm going to be speaking like this and that. And today I'm really trying to have a little less tension here. So this was actually a question brought on by Melody. And I'm just going to pull this up here on my laptop. Melody says, I've transitioned full time, and like many of my friends, I think I've done a pretty darn good job of transitioning in a lot of ways. Certainly, your videos have helped a lot with inner confidence and spiritual warrior mentality. Thanks, Melody. But a femme voice is still so frustratingly elusive, and a major part of my journey in dysphoria at the minute. Most of the women I know have either terrible voices like myself or have given up altogether. You have such a beautiful and natural female voice. Thank you. Though at the moment, I don't know where I'm at. It doesn't seem to be the best. Could you do a video on how you learned a female voice, what your process was, how long it took, etc., especially any helpful mindsets for living with the dysphoria through the improvement process? Like if it's going to take a couple years or of just darn hard daily work, or accept that. Okay, Melody. So first of all, I feel you, and I'm guessing there's a lot of trans women out there with their own kind of struggles with this. I have my own, or I did have my own. I still feel like there's a lot of improvement to be made, and oftentimes that's related to the fact that I have allergies, which can result in like getting a raspier voice that makes it harder for me to kind of like feel better in. So like as I'm actually speaking, I'm starting to listen to my own voice, and I'm tweaking it and adjusting it to make it a little bit better without like trying to apply too much pressure. So I've made a list of some things, and maybe this might help you on your own femme voice transformation. I've done 7 lessons with Trans Voice Lessons girl, Ziana, and I've started doing voice lessons with another voice coach recently to help me with my tension, because currently my problem is tension. So as far as like helping my own voice on my journey, practicing the right things was a big part of that. Knowing what would really click with me, so that I would be able to use my voice. Use my voice in a way that was like very easy and intuitive, and I could just like learn and grow it without having to think too hard. I think one of the weird things of practicing your voice that you don't really understand at first is every time you practice, you start to develop muscle memory, and that muscle memory really starts to develop your ability to speak more naturally without having to think about all the mechanics and stuff. So yeah, so let me just get into this. First section is talking about the beginning. So it took me about 7 lessons or 6 months and 6 months to get to a sculpted and adapted voice where I felt comfortable enough to speak, and to speak on camera and to speak in real life. What I was doing additional to practicing every evening is I would just practice my femme voice in real life too. Some trans women I notice don't want to practice their femme voice in real life because they're not out yet. They haven't finished their presentation side, and it feels weird for them to embody a different voice, or feels embarrassing. So this might be good in the sense that if you're going that route, it might force you to spend more energy and time to get a better femme voice for yourself. But the downside is you're not practicing it everywhere, and so it might also be slower. I'm always for the cheapest, fastest, easiest thing to do. And the cheapest, fastest, easiest thing to do with your voice is to just start practicing in every single opportunity that you have to practice. If you want to practice in anonymity, one of the best places to do that is to do it in online games, especially Counter-Strike, because they are pretty harsh if you don't pass. So you'll get immediate feedback. And, just in other games too. So I would say go for that. I know Sienna practiced her voice a lot in Counter-Strike before she kind of I don't know if she practiced it before she became a vocal coach, but she definitely practices it, and she was telling me it was one of her methods that she used. Once I got my basics down, the next thing happened is I started to eventually learn how to laugh with a femme voice, and that made things easier for me because then I could not feel like I had a super deep voice when I'm laughing and stuff. And then the last thing, which was the hardest thing to get down over time, was my sex voice. Yeah, sex voice is a lot harder because, I didn't really practice it on my own. And sex voice is kind of this weird thing where you're trying to express and communicate your sexual experience, your sexual pleasure to your partner. And you can get totally lost in your own sense of how you're expressing and also how you're being read and if it's femme enough or if it's even right. So just be aware of that for the trans ladies that have already tried this. Has this happened to you where you start to lose track of the sex itself because now you're just focusing on the performance of the sex, if that makes sense? So that's something to think about. So next section, mindset. So I'd say in the startup phase, there's kind of a serious commitment that you're going to have to go through for a few months. So when I first started doing voice, I was practicing 5 times a week. I had a tutor and I was reading and just trying to hit all the notes and do all of the things. But it takes a lot of time to get there. And so you kind of need to ramp up a lot of the basics that you don't fully understand until you can internalize them and then just start practicing them in real life and doing them wherever you are, right? The next thing I kind of did once I had the baselines going and I was practicing in real life is a year later I would revisit it, and a year later I'd revisit again, and I'd just make little tweaks and adjustments as I made progress. I'm at almost the 6-year mark of my transition, and I'm still revisiting this and going back because I just have vocal tension. I've been overusing the larynx, and the amount of pressure I've been using with the back of my tongue has actually created a lot of muscular tension there. And then also I press too much vocally through here. There's too much air passing through. So part of this lying down exercise that I'm doing is to lessen the amount of pressure to actually get the sound to come through so that I can be more relaxed. The next thing that you'll probably need to get over is the mental block. And there's layers to this, right? But when you first start and you start shifting your voice, it's very disorienting because your mind and your brain haven't caught up with identifying with this new voice. And it can sound more high-pitched or maybe even false or not even real. And I think a lot of trans women get stuck on this. I notice this a lot, where they identify so strongly with their previous voice, they don't allow themselves mentally to fully transition their voice into a new voice. They allow the old behaviors of their past voice to come into the new voice and not really allow a full transformation and burning down of the old voice. Do you know any trans women that you've noticed that with? Are you one of those trans women that's doing that? Think and reflect on this because I think this is really important. You really need to let go of your voice association with your identity as you go through this process, and you will feel like you've lost your voice, your voice of yourself, as you start to discard your previous voice and as you start to form new ground for your new voice. I remember telling someone that I think it was my partner at the time. I told them that I didn't have a voice. It felt like I lost my voice because I was in no woman's land, where I didn't really have my own voice established, but I also didn't want to go back to the old voice or the old voice behaviors. So also understand there's going to be some times, and I think it took me about a year to get out of the no woman's voice. I want to say no man's land, the no woman's voice, because it's like it feels very disorienting and also like kind of sad because it feels like you've lost your expression. But don't worry, stick to it and go through that. And if you do disregard this old voice, you'll gain a lot of benefit in not just how your voice is going to sound, but how you're going to feel when you express yourself, and also getting a new perspective on yourself. I think one of the harder things that goes on inside is the push and pull or feedback mechanism that you have with the sound. You hear the sound, you associate with yourself, and then that reinforces your own perception of yourself, right? Like this is how self-perception can work. So when you change your voice and you adapt it, you get a new voice that you may not associate with, and that lack of association can be disorienting. But heightening and like raising the voice, making the voice better, and associating your identity with that can also encourage you to express more femininity and feel more comfortable in your femininity. So I think this is a really great technique, which is like renegotiating your identity with your voice by letting go and also burning it down essentially, and then starting to learn how to identify it in a new way. The new voice won't always stick, and that may be frustrating in itself, but just keep at it, keep trying, and eventually you'll kind of find a place where you feel very comfortable. At the moment, I feel very comfortable with my voice, but I'm ready to disregard it and develop and make it even better as I'm going through this new detension-ifying process. The second thing is practice. So the biggest thing is what I just went over as the mindset. And then the second thing, which is smaller but still important, is the practice, reading and like doing your vocal exercises. There's plenty of vocal exercises online. And if you hire a teacher, you can also get vocal exercises. Do your vocal exercises. And I'm going to actually go into some of these vocal exercises that I've found very useful. So even if you don't have someone, you could probably do some of these with me. So here's some of the most impactful mechanical things that I've done. So now we're in the mechanical section. And I say this because my YouTube editor is going to add these as time points so you can skip around. So this one was pretty big. E. Knowing that A, I, E, O, U, these are all different vowel sounds that affect the placement of it affects the shape of your sound and affects the pitch. And ah is a deeper sound, ah versus e. So like you're gonna get a lot easier of a higher pitch sound with an e. So if I'm speaking with an E, I can just stay in this E state and go, yeah, like E this, E that, like this sounds great, like that's easy. But then if I go with an ah state, I could be like, oh, okay, I'm speaking with an ah voice, and now here, this is the thing that's that, and this is the thing that's that, and you can see how it's just like a different tone and sound. So, and then ooh is like the deepest, right? So you're gonna go down even further. You don't really want the ooh, you want the E. So like starting to go, oh, like I'm just gonna keep myself in an E, and then this was the part that I've just learned recently, is to just release the tension with the back of the tongue. So there's less pressure on the back to do the E sound, and there's plenty of diaphragm action to allow the E to come out, you know. Learning to raise the larynx has been another important one. Look, my voice has changed again. Learning to raise the larynx. So here's the larynx, right? And when you don't really have like access to understanding how to change it until you learn to feel it. And part of feeling it is just like learning to swallow. And I don't mean that kind of swallowing, though that kind of swallowing could happen. You want the swallowing to just feel like how you can feel it move. See, swallow. So you can go, and this is how I learned to move it, is you go, And so if I speak like this, where it's at the top, it's a lot higher pitched. And then when I combine it with the E sound, it's now here. And now I'm just trying to reduce the amount of pressure that's coming through my vocal cords. So now it sounds a lot brighter, and it makes me feel different about my voice. I feel like I can enunciate in a more feminine way, and I would like my voice to kind of be here. But I'm still working on it because my problem has been in the past too much tension where it started to feel uncomfortable. So typically, like, this is where my voice will just sit because I'm feeling less tension. But today, because I'm lying on my back, it's automatically reducing the tension in my neck. So I can kind of actually go a little higher and feel a lot less tension. I'm really trying to recondition my vocal cords not to activate too much tension as I'm doing this. The next thing is projecting with your diaphragm. This is pretty important because if you don't have enough air coming through your diaphragm, what you're going to do is you're going to have like a lot of tension building up, or you're going to be squeezing tight, or you're just not going to be able to hit the pitch that you want. And by the way, like, getting a higher pitch just takes time and effort and practice and doing it and getting used to doing it. My voice just naturally rests at a higher point now that I'm used to doing it. But yeah, projecting with your diaphragm is pretty important. And then last thing is kind of like head voice. So like moving the vocal sound up into here will also make it sound a bit more feminine. And another thing is vocal fry at the end of your sentence. So like when you're done, you can go like this is the vocal fry. And what's useful about the vocal fry is that the vocal fry prevents you from actually dipping down and resetting to a deeper level. So one of the biggest problems that I've had in the past is that, like, as I'm speaking, I'm just kind of eventually going down on the frequency spectrum, and every time I end a sentence, which I end with a down rather than going up, means that I eventually just kind of keep going down and down and down, and then it takes a lot of energy to kind of come back up. But like if you end on a vocal fry, then you're kind of actually able to skip that end, and I'm practicing it right now, where like you end up staying kind of where you want to stay, and then that's a great way of kind of keeping it there, right? So this is a kind of like, it's a practice and it's a behavior. And how do you get that practice going? Or the behavior going, you just need to keep doing it till it becomes more natural. That's something I'm working on myself. Enunciation. So I kind of just touched on that. This is the behavioral section. So the enunciation is kind of like you want to go up at the end of sentences, but I don't know. I just feel like it's too Valley Girl or something. I don't know. I just feel weird doing it up. So I actually just kind of do it neutral. And people seem to like my voice when I do it neutral because I've ended up with this kind of, I don't want to say Frankenstein voice, but a strange gendered voice that's almost gendered neutral, with a lot of enunciation, but also some male behavior speaking patterns that are actually helpful in being articulate, neutral, and helping me kind of dodge and avoid the stereotypical voice of like those dumb blonde girls. I mean, blonde girls are not dumb. I know a lot of brilliant blonde girls, but you know what I mean, like the clueless bunch. The last behavioral thing is just like shifting identity and letting the voice guide me to a new place. So what I mean by that is as you kind of find a new voice, you may find that your identity is going to start to shift if you allow it to, and you're also going to start to find new ways of expressing this as you get new versions of yourself coming out. Next section, I'm still learning, I call it. So here's some of the things that I'm still learning and practicing and tweaking with my vocal coach right now. So lessening tension, that's the biggest thing. So here's how we discovered this. So see, I ran out of air. What I should be doing is that I should just be breathing out. So like I shouldn't like run out of air so quickly. So like now, like if I can lessen the amount of airflow that's escaping me, then I'm not going to feel as much tension to keep the vocal cords at its place, and it'll be easier for me to maintain a better place in my speech without like feeling like I'm like fighting myself. So that's something I'm working on. Vocal fry on the ends, which I've mentioned before, that's something that I'm also working on. Less tongue pressure at the back, so like less using this back part of the tongue to like hit the E sound, and more just kind of like helping the E sound go through without like pressuring it or trying to get it there too hard. And then, yeah, I've already kind of touched on this, less air pressure and slower air release. So this is the last section, voice evolves. So you're going to learn your expression and as you experiment and learn to embrace this. I think like a lot of the most important thing, if you can just come away with anything, is learning to experiment, releasing yourself from your attachment to your ego and your identity, and allowing the new voice to guide you with a sense of new feelings, new expression, and not being attached to how it wants to be or how it is, because you're going to get frustrated if you're not always getting the exact results you want. This is the long game, right? You're going to need to work on this. You'll find new ways of expressing your femininity. I kind of just mentioned that. And if your voice sucks, that's okay. It's not always going to be that way. And as long as you keep working on it and practicing, you can make serious progress. And the reason why this is important, or why, sorry, I'm just like moving my laptop now. The reason why you're going to make progress is because it's just a mechanical thing. And your voice is not that much different than my voice. We all have deep voices, as with male voices, and it's just because of the distance in your vocal cords. And if you can just shorten that distance through use of all these different mechanical things that I've mentioned, then you can get to a feminine voice fairly easily. I think there are very few people, there are more exceptions to the rule, that aren't able to do this. And I think if you feel like it's impossible and you can't do it, it's more likely, probably 90% more likely, that this is a mentality thing for you, this is an identity thing for you, or this is an exercises and practice thing for you. And it's probably a combination of all of the above. Don't give up on yourself. Believe in your ability to do this. Perseverance is going to get you through, and practice, practice, practice. If you would like to support me and support this video, please drop me a super thanks. That's like a tip, or you can join my subscription. Please like and subscribe to this video if you're new here. I offer trans and personal development growth topics. I'll see you in another episode soon. Bye.